What's going on, guys? If you've noticed, I've switched around my setup for now. I've had a few of you make a few comments about the whole profile of which I was shooting in. So let's see if this is a little better. I will eventually figure out how to deal with the shadows, but for now, I guess I could do like some shadow puppets on the wall when I'm bored. So for today, I wanted to do a little bit of story time to tell you all how I went from working in fine dining to being a data engineer, as well as starting my own data consulting company. And yes, when I say fine dining, I do mean fine dining, as we were one of those places that charge upwards of $200 per person for some sort of prefix menu where it's 9 courses. And despite the 9 courses, you leave the restaurant hungry and having to drive yourself to the nearest McDonald's to satisfy the need for a Big Mac. So yes, younger me had dreams of working in fine dining and being a chef that were quickly trampled by life about the time I turned 20, when I realized my paycheck went from about $10 an hour, starting at 16, to about $15 an hour. Luckily, I had already done Running Start, so I was really only behind by about a year when it came back to going to college at 20, and I finished college with a degree in information systems. Okay, before going forward, we need to have a heart-to-heart. 80% of you still aren't subscribed to my channel. Look, if you're enjoying this content and you want to hear more about data engineering, data science, or starting a consulting business, please take a moment to smash that like button and also subscribe. It does mean a lot to me, and it definitely encourages me to keep making these videos. So thank you so much, and let's get back to the main content. Now, there was one glaring problem when I finished college, which was I really didn't have much work experience in the technical field. At best, I taught some kids programming, but that was mostly drag and drop code, and it really wasn't the same as working in a production environment. So after about 9 months of applying, I finally got an interview at a local hospital where I got a job on a finance team being their BI developer. When I first started, I thought things were great. I had a mentor who was someone who had been in the field for a long time. He had a lot of projects set up, and I was really excited until about a week later when he told me he had found a new job and was leaving the company to go work for Amazon. Now, obviously that was great for him, but it put me in the position of being the only technical person on that finance team, and that made things very difficult, very fast. To add to that, they had started several projects and initiatives that I wasn't even aware of that became apparent later on that I suddenly had to kind of take on and learn a lot about. In many ways, it was great. I had the chance to kind of experiment and try out different concepts. I learned a lot about ASP.NET and C#, but I never really felt like I had a clear or defined role and really didn't know anything about best practices. Overall, that led me to making a lot of bad design decisions, as I was kind of limited to resources in terms of really only having the internet or Stack Overflow to try to answer most of my questions. And it became very apparent very quickly that I needed to find a new role in which I could find someone that would help me understand the best practices as well as how to develop in a production environment. And that pushed me to go interview at several companies, including companies like Amazon, as well as a few startups, where I finally found a place where I could learn at a healthcare startup. It was honestly a great opportunity for me because we did a lot of projects from start to finish, where we actually had to think about some sort of starting state and end state that we wanted, whether that be a product, a migration, or something similar, in which I got to learn a lot about the best practices that I was referring to. At that startup is where I think I did a lot of my technical growing in terms of really understanding how to not just develop code, but develop code in a production environment. Thanks to the fact that the director of engineering, and now essentially the CEO of said startup, was really skilled at not just being an engineer, but as well as being a project manager and seeing high-level strategy. I think I learned a lot more than just code. She really pushed me in terms of trying to think through end-to-end solutions and trying to think about engineering projects as a whole and not just trying to think about individual solutions. In addition, the work that we did for the 2 years that I was there involved so much SQL and product development, it really set me up for the interviews I did in the future at companies like Facebook, Amazon, Capital One, and so forth, because I had a good understanding of not just, again, the technical aspect, but also the product aspect. Whether it be how you develop KPIs and metrics or write queries specifically for things like analytics in order to avoid some of the pitfalls that you might run into, all of that was kind of covered in my development of these various dashboards and products that we developed for external companies. And just to add another layer of benefits, the ability to understand end-to-end data solutions has played a pivotal role in my consulting work, where I do a lot of end-to-end data solutions, whether that be developing data warehouses, dashboards, some sort of data science model. It really was thanks to that director of engineering who really forced me and challenged me to think beyond a single solution or use case. And from there, I went and interviewed at several tech companies. Of course, I had my fair share of successes and failures through interviewing. I think most of us do. and eventually landed in a pretty good position. As you can see, my story is far from a straight line. And I assume plenty of your stories out there are the same. So if your goal is one day to be a data scientist, a data engineer, or maybe possibly a software engineer, and maybe right now that's not the current position you're in, there are definitely a lot of opportunities to grow and challenge yourself out there that eventually could lead you to working at either a FAANG or some other top company that you're looking to get to, even if it takes a little bit longer. And with that, I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.